Well, hi everyone. It is David George Brooke, that gratitude guy, with another episode of Suzanne Taylor King, the entrepreneur's secret weapon, and David George Brooke, that gratitude guy. And the topic for this week is craft an irresistible value proposition. So, Suzanne, welcome to the weekly video.
Hey, what's up? This is going to be a good one today. I'm excited.
It's going to be a good one. So why don't you kick us off? I love the term value proposition
hmm
because a lot of people talk about that, and I don't know if everybody else knows what that is, but crafting an irresistible is a great word. And I've got some thoughts around it naturally, but and I know we often detour off into other subjects as well during this 45 minutes to an hour. But tell me your thoughts around it and how you see that.
Well, number one, it has to speak directly to your ideal client. So whatever you're proposing, whether it's, working together or a collaboration or even asking someone for a favor, it has to be valuable to the other person. And I think this is missed a lot out there in the marketplace. When you're talking about yourself to other people, doesn't matter so much what you do. It matters who you do it for and what change is going to happen for that other person, whether it's solving a problem or, a solution to something. Like it has to be for that other person. And if you don't know how to speak that, it just kind of sounds like you're speaking to everyone. And that might be why you're not getting the engagement or the clients that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's true. And I really think it's interesting. Again, value proposition and the offer, whatever it is, an irresistible offer. Something that's really hit me in the last few years is, and I'd love your thoughts on this as well, is there's this idea of give your best, valuable, most important content that you possibly can. The newest
Mhm.
cutting edge, anything you've ever, any research you've done or anything you're doing around what you're teaching or coaching. And people would say, oh, why would you give away all your stuff? Then nobody would want to hire you and nobody would want to take advantage of your offer. But the concept that I really would love, again, some comments on is this idea that people have the information, but what they really need help with is implementation. And
Mhm.
so, as it turns out, so do you believe that and think that don't you think that makes sense in terms of getting the best, most current stuff out to the group as much as you can?
100%. I mean, just let's use you as an example. You have a free monthly event. You have conversations with people all the time.
Mhm.
You give tools, you give resources, you give theories, you give practices, which is in reality what you do. And ultimately, people pay you to help them implement it,
Right.
not for new information from you. Though I'm sure they're getting new, but by giving it all away, your thoughts, your insights, your tools and resources, you attract somebody who says, "Oh, I need to implement that for me. David can help me with that."
And I've always liked the analogy too. It's so important to start with yourself and are you
Mhm.
setting the best example? And as I always say, you can't be a parent and be smoking and say to your kids, you better not smoke, but you're puffing away. And
Mm,
but it reminds me of why do you have a personal trainer? And honestly, as much as I'd like to say completely disciplined in all the things I do with fitness or other things, the personal trainer makes me show up to the gym. So
mhm.
there's your implementation. And it's
Yeah.
to me, and I can kind of take it from there, but it's nice to have somebody say, now we're going to do this exercise or that exercise. And that part is fun for sure. But really, the biggest thing is it makes you show up. And so that's what I think you really want to focus on is that this person will help you and guide you and hold you accountable. Of course, probably the biggest word of all, through your offer, through your coaching, or whatever it might be. But I also think there's something that's interesting. It happened related to you and me when you and I first met, which I really like, is that if the irresistible offer is that good, and I know you've had this probably happen maybe more times than I have, but I love it when you're talking to the person and you're coaching them and you're giving all those things you just said about the Infusion Mastermind, and you're giving them content and research and theories and ideas and exercises and activities and all these things that are helping them to reinforce what you're teaching.
Hmm.
is that the person then says, instead of you saying, well, now, can I talk to you about my coaching program? They say, well, how can I work with you? And
Hmm.
I just think that's it happened to me with you. I just think that's the ultimate compliment, which shows how well you're presenting your irresistible value proposition.
Yeah. Well, I think, the step before whatever your value proposition is, you have to know what you stand for and what you stand against. Um, so me personally, I believe that coaching is custom and it's co-created with my clients in conversation.
Mhm.
So since I believe that, then what does it look like if I'm selling some cookie cutter solution out there on the marketplace? I have to stand, if that's my belief, then I have to stand in the value proposition of custom, co-created program that you and I decide on at the beginning of our relationship.
Right, right. And when
And
oh, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, if you believe something and your value proposition reflects that and it's unique in the marketplace, unique value proposition, then you stand out even in a room full of other people who have the same job title as you.
Right, right. And you and I have an acquaintance. I don't know if I would give him credit for the term, but always articulate massive value. But that really is true. And so
Mm.
I think whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 2 minutes, or there's elevator speech, there's all these different things that people talk about it. But really, how do you best articulate massive value in 2 minutes or 3 minutes or five or whatever?
Um, well, you have to know who you're talking to, I
Mhm.
guess. You have to know who's in the room. If we're talking just on social media in general, you have to test what works with your ideal prospect.
Mhm.
For me, I'm always testing what I post and how I post it, what kind of engagement it gets. Does it
Yeah,
make someone reach out to me or does it make people comment? And if it does, then I do more of that.
yeah.
But it's always a testing ground, even from, I was just in a networking event this morning and I had never gone to this event before, but it's in a group where I know a lot of the people, just a new event that they host. And instead of saying when I got to introduce myself, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm a life and business coach for entrepreneurs," and whatever else I would say, I started off with a question. Have
Hmm.
you ever struggled as an entrepreneur to find the balance and the time to do things you wanted to do, and you feel tied to working so much because you like the money that you're making?
Yeah,
Hi, I'm Suzanne Taylor King, and
that's
I
good.
help you work less and make more money.
Hmm.
So nobody in the room described what they do that way.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, it was not
Yeah,
bad.
it's good. And I know when I do talks, but also when I present to coaching people too, I start off with you. That's a great question to start off with because then they
Mhm.
subconsciously or consciously answer it.
Yeah.
I use a statement like you and only you choose your attitude.
Mm.
And you can choose an attitude of gratitude, and it'll help you to be happier, healthier, and lighter every single day. And then,
Mhm.
so then getting the person kind of to think and things. But I do find it interesting when we go back to articulating massive value in a short period of time. And there's just so many people that it, I don't know, they don't do a good job presenting. And so people don't want to
Mm.
ask, like when you ask that question, I want to immediately answer it. Yes, I have struggled and so forth, and tell me a little bit more about it. And and that's where I think some people, it's just, I'm thinking, what would you say kind of, again, you have to know your audience. I really like that. But what would you give sort of two or three bullet points about what's going to be an effective checklist to articulate that value to that potential client?
Oh, be concise.
Yeah.
Um, don't use filler words like I just did.
Mm,
while you're
mm,
thinking.
yeah.
Silence is better. And don't be afraid to give actual information. A
Mm,
lot of people, no, I notice, talk around a subject,
right.
but they don't just tell me how to do it.
Yeah.
Just tell me how to do it.
Yeah.
There's a girl I follow that I get a lot of AI information from. She gives away great prompts. She teaches a lot of marketing things and things you can do with AI, but she's always to the point. And that's one of the reasons I like her content is because I can watch a 10-minute video and learn actually how to do something. I don't need her fluff and her backstory and her theories about whatever. She's concise and she's like, okay, watch this video if you want to learn how to create a custom chat GPT. Yeah, that's what I want to learn.
Yeah.
And it was 8 minutes of my time
Yeah.
to watch it. I don't need to hear her backstory.
Right.
So I think you do this really, really well. Um, you give the information without fluff or fillery, I call it, like that those extra sentences that mean absolutely nothing.
Right. Well, and thank you. And just the most recent infusion mastermind, as I mentioned to you, a mutual acquaintance of yours and mine was the one that happened to mention about start with your content and
Hmm.
don't start with housekeeping. And I just thought that was such a fabulous, because I've done
Hmm.
8 or 9 of them now, 10 of them, whatever it's been. I started last May, I think. But it makes so much sense. First of all, you start right on time. And number two, you get right into the content, right into it. And so
Right in.
you attract somebody versus, well, now we meet here and then I want you to have your, and it's fine. I can do that at a half hour, but now you've got the people, wow, this is some good stuff. And then
Yeah.
in my particular case, the thing that I got some feedback from John, the friend yesterday was on the call, and other people is how much people love the breakout rooms. And you and I have talked about that before. And
Yeah.
you and I might have even met in the breakout room way back when we first met. I think, oh man, this is somebody I really want to connect with and so forth. But you can't get that when there's 20 or 30 or how many people on this thing. So,
Right.
but
Right.
it's interesting. That was such a great thing to just start off. It's the same thing we talk about starting the concert on time and you respect the people that are there, but really get into it. And another thing that I got comments on, I always get comments on the exercises. And now this is getting a little bit more into a talk than a pitch. But I just made a note to myself, I need to come up with 3 or 4 new exercises to add. So some of these people have done it before and they're good to do them again.
Hmm.
But I will come up with some more that'll reinforce how gratitude gets into your brain and what it does for you and so forth, but just to spice things up a little bit. And it's interesting, the guy that I got to talk with yesterday that was on the call, and he mentions, I said, what, give me some feedback. He said, no, it was great. I met some nice people and everything. He says, but I've seen you like 15 or 20 times.
Mm.
I went, well, that's good because it means you're
That is good.
finally
That's a
getting
good
it now.
compliment.
Yeah. So finally, after all this time, it's like the old joke about the sermon from the minister and the people in the congregation are concerned because he's given the same sermon 3 Sundays in a row and they think he's losing it. And
Uh-huh.
so somebody calls him aside after the third Sunday on that Monday and they said, you've given the same sermon 3 weeks in a row. And he goes, yeah, and I'm going to keep giving it until everybody gets it. And so
Yeah.
he
But
knew that
but
it was
that's really, really hard. I know I don't know about you, but for me, I forget that people are thinking about themselves.
right,
So whenever I'm out there in the public, whether it's giving a talk, posting on social media, or networking, even at my own events that I host, I have to repeat myself. Otherwise, nobody is going to retain. And
right,
this is another thing, your unique value proposition or your elevator pitch or your statement, whatever you're going to call it, has to be the same all the
right,
time.
right,
What you paste in the chat, if you're doing virtual networking, has to be the same all of the time. Just like going to in-person networking, you don't hand out a different business card every
right.
time you go, right?
Right.
You're always handing the same one. And I think that's hard for most creative entrepreneurs.
True. And I think also something you said a few minutes ago, tracking these things, A/B testing, trying to figure out what it is,
Yeah.
that's very valuable naturally to see. And if you want to try several pitches and see which one works, then as you say, stick with it. You wouldn't hand out different business cards.
Hmm.
But it's funny that you and I've talked a lot about videos, and for those that are listening, video is probably the top way to comment now or do create content, maybe more than
Yeah.
blogs or posts or whatever. But it's all important, but video is way up there. But I happened to do a TikTok, a YouTube video today. It also goes to LinkedIn and Facebook. And the title today was I don't know. And the idea is that there's just some questions. That's the only answer. No, no, no. I need to know. No, no, I don't know. But you need to tell me the answer. And the reason I bring that up, because you and I have talked about this before, is let's see, let's look at the video of the last few weeks.
Hmm.
250, 50, 375, 10.
Uh-huh.
600. Yeah, you just and you can't figure it out. And
Yeah.
and that's why I like the I don't know, because all you can do is just keep doing it. But I will say something that is important. This to me is important content. I just realized during the month of December, and everybody always talks about consistency. So content, yes, and be consistent and do the same message as you said, and so forth. And be aware of tags and titles and all that kind of thing. And then thumbnails too, but like on a short video, they don't have thumbnails. And
Hmm.
so it was interesting how I kind of, because of the holidays, and I kind of didn't do as many videos. I typically do them 7 days a week. And so I kind of dropped off, and I noticed my average, just this is just on TikTok as a learning experience for me that might be valuable. So I was averaging 500, 600, 700, sometimes 800, once in a while, 1,000. And then I didn't do
Hmm.
it for a while. And then I started after about a week or two of not being posting as much because I finally started batch shooting them, which is the smartest thing I've done since
Yeah.
whatever. And so now I got them all ready to go. So then I started to post again, and my average post was like 200 to 300 people. And I went, what happened? My followers have grown and all that kind of thing. And so I
Hmm.
thought, don't worry about it, just keep posting. And then now I noticed today, now that I've been back posting again, this is February, for the last 4 or 5 weeks consistently, now it's back to 700 or 800, And so I think the consistency thing is really important. And
100%.
yeah, and so what would you say is your video philosophy when we talk about that?
Well, I have a philosophy and then I have what I actually do.
Hmm.
They might be a little different. Um, my philosophy is be as visible as possible.
Yeah,
Whether it's video, podcasting, sending voice messages to people or, little video messages. And I don't do it as much as I used to. One, because I'm pretty tapped out time-wise,
yeah,
but not as an excuse in any way. I typically don't like to do as many videos when I'm busy. Like I need to think about it. I need to plan it out. And I'm not on TikTok and I don't really do uh reels or like content like that.
right,
Even though I do see the value, I've posted a couple clips of ours in the last couple weeks and seen how 400, 500, 600 people are
right.
seeing each one. And I'm like, well, I was never doing that before. So I've reached a certain level of viewership that uh, I think video would be interesting now because I've gotten to a certain level without it, but I think I'm pretty visible still.
Yeah,
So I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what the magic number is of reels or stories or videos, or I know when I post a little video clip on LinkedIn, I get tons of engagement
right.
with it. When I
It's
post a
hard, it's hard to
longer
figure out.
video, not so much.
It's hard to figure out because
It
everybody
is.
talks about the algorithm and
Mhm.
just the way it is and why some it's just baffling, which is why I like the I don't know thing. But
Yeah.
I want to shift for a second. You just said something, and I think this might be of value to our audience as well. But you said I'm kind of tapped out for time. That was your exact
Yeah.
quote. And you and I have talked about this on previous conversations and on previous videos. What is working for you on a very positive note? What is working for you to do a better job of not being so tapped out? Because I have some thoughts, but I want to start with you. Since you kind of made this determination that, this is not working for me, I'm kind of what's kind of been working as you've kind of shifted in the last few weeks or so.
Taking things off my calendar, getting rid of things 100%. Um, so I used to have a $10 a month content offer, like a
Mhm.
membership, and I just stopped doing it. And, sent an email to everybody who was in it, your payment's now canceled. I'm not doing this anymore. For anybody that paid, for next year, I'm going to refund your money, whatever. And I handled it. And there was a piece of me that was scared to delete the sales page.
Right,
But you truly can't move on to the next thing or the greater thing while you're still holding on to old junk. So, as this relates to your value in the marketplace, you have to, if you're looking to up level your value, you can't be holding on to those old things or statements or links or sales pages. You really have to be willing to put those things that no longer serve you in the trash completely.
right.
You can't kind of, you what do they call that? You can't balance between, oh, what I used to do and what I really want to do, because then there's confusion in the marketplace. So I feel like it was a bold move to delete something, but the more I see that, it enabled a new value proposition. It also enabled a new guarantee. It also enabled a huge partnership deal for me, which never would have happened had I had a $10 product on the shelf.
Yeah, yeah. And you said something else that made me think about it too, because I've kind of done the same thing. And
Hmm.
under the headline of networking meetings, I could mention a bunch of names which you would know and I would know. And I just started getting way too many. And I
Hmm.
sort of felt like whether it's a virtual cup of coffee or an actual cup of coffee here, looking at the Zoom call and all these people, and then of course we like the breakout room and so forth. But it hit me, and when you said you just sometimes you got to draw a line in the sand, it hit
Hmm.
me when have I gotten one coaching client, one speaking gig, one thing, anything, or
Hmm.
is it just a bunch of having coffee with my friends at Starbucks, but it happens to be on Zoom,
Yeah.
and it's and so I've cut 90% of it out. And then kind of what I did in my case is I looked at one that's next week, and the one I'll probably be on just because I like the speaker and I know the speaker and I want to hear the speaker or something like that. But really, I've cut out about 75% of them, and it's been much better. And
Yeah.
I was thinking about, and like even I mentioned this lunch I had yesterday, there's a lunch which is all about a speaking gig. So it makes perfect sense to me. And I even
Yeah.
treated lunch and everything and thanks so much and so forth. And so I think that's why it segues a little bit into how you use your time. And I think
Hmm.
every so often I use that association evaluator exercise that you ought to reevaluate who you're hanging out with. Well, I think you also ought to reevaluate how you're spending your time. And
Yeah.
then and to your point too, sometimes even just time alone to create and however that means by yourself or whatever. Then you and I have talked in our particular situations, we don't necessarily have partners or spouses, friends, whatever that are close to us as much that can give us all this great support because they don't understand what we do as much. So
Hmm.
you have to kind of figure that out for yourself. And so
Yeah.
sometimes it's kind of there's just times of motivation and times of creativity that you need to take advantage of because other times it doesn't happen. So you better not do it. But I'll have that pad of paper. I'll just start going and it's like, oh, this is so great. And it starts to flow. But a
Hmm.
lot of times it doesn't. And so, but at least leaving that time makes a big difference.
It does. And that goes right back to being a value, the middle word in what we're talking about today.
Mhm.
In order to be of value to other people, you have to be of value to yourself
Right.
first. And we
Right.
talked last week about self-awareness.
Hmm.
And This feeds right into that. It's really the amount of time that you're willing to spend on yourself, knowing yourself, is the only way you can be of value to other people.
Yeah.
Because if you don't know what your strengths are, what your superpowers are, what what your knowledge base is, how can you put a statement together that attracts other people? Like
Right.
you can't. It
Right.
just it doesn't work.
Right.
So I think it's really about being of value to other people first, and then figuring out what they need and solving that problem for
Right.
them. But you can't do any of that without knowing yourself on that deeper level. For me, it's time alone. I need
Well,
that.
true. And I also think if you're going to create content, you have to consume content. And so
Mm,
how you consume content can be very different. This same gentleman I mentioned to you a couple times yesterday at lunch recommended 3 or 4 books, and I'd actually heard of 2 of the books. And but I said, he says, "Well, I'll send you the book or something." I said, "No, no, 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 no. I can't do books. It's just it just doesn't work for me. The physical book just doesn't work." And I sit down and I got to call STK. I got to do this, and I start thinking about something. It just doesn't
yeah.
work. But
Yeah.
Audible works for me. And
Hmm.
because of how my brain works, I can put it on 1.5 and sometimes 2.0. And so his mode though was Kindle. So he has the tablet with the writing and he reads it on the Kindle and so forth. He says, otherwise I give it to you, but I have to give you my device, you know, and I go, no, that's fine. But it just reminded me of how somebody once said, I don't care what your system is, just get one.
Yeah.
And so, however it works best for you, reading a book, I mean, I bet you I've read on Audible 60 or 70 books in the last year or two. And it's about one a week, give or take 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And because when I go walking, and then a 2 hour walk feels like 35 minutes because I'm
Yeah.
so engrossed in the book, and especially if it's a page turner or whatever. But my point coming back to that is that how are you going to create content if you're not consuming content? So how do you consume content, and what's the best way to do that? And frankly, one of the things that makes it really challenging now is it's just the ways you can consume content and the content available is almost infinite. I mean, it's how do you even begin to choose where to select the things you want to listen to?
I don't know. I I don't know. It's one of the hardest things for me because my number two character strength is love of learning.
Mhm.
So, oh boy, fire hose me all the
Yeah.
time. Send me more content. I want to read this. I want to watch this video. But one of the things that's helped um is picking a topic. So, picking a
Mm.
topic for either the week or the next 30 days. For example, I'm wanting to create a custom chat GPT for my coaching. And there's more, but I need to learn certain skills in order to do that. And
Mm.
I need to understand, can I sell it? Can I profit from it? Is it a value add for people? And so I decided, okay, so this week that I'm learning how to do that, I'm going to read so and so's newsletter that go in a certain email folder. So that comes back to being organized with my emails.
Mhm.
So I get 2 AI newsletters, which are fabulous, but I don't read them every week.
Right.
They go into a folder, and like this week I can go back
Yeah.
and say, okay, which one has content that I need? Now that's helpful for me, but I don't know if that would work for someone else.
Well,
I think you have to find your own way to do it.
yes. And speaking of that, not into the weeds, but 30,000 foot view, because you and I have talked about this before, and I think this might be valuable too. What is your most current management of your time philosophy that is working for you now? Because you and I have talked about changing this from having way too many things. You just mentioned drinking out of a fire hose, all that kind of thing. But what's the most current configuration for you? And again, not into the weeds, but that's kind of working for you to better balance your time.
Hmm. Number one, being conscious about what goes on my calendar.
Mm,
Is that something for me? Is it something for my family? Or is it something for my business? Three different colors.
nice.
And if it's something for my business, it has to be in work hours. So that's how I adjusted, those friend conversations that
Right.
were filling the calendar. That doesn't go during work hours because it's not work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, really, I think time management was super important for me because I don't do well piecemealing projects at all.
Hmm.
I need to start and finish a project. So I have to have a 3-hour time block if I need to do a sales page
Right.
or write an email sequence.
Yeah.
I can't do it in 15-minute intervals. It's not how I work.
I don't know if it's common. I don't think I've ever asked you this before, but for me, I don't have a better phrase than the one I'm about to say, is that sometimes I'm just not in the mood for it. And
Hmm.
and so that's okay. But like you said, I got to block out 3 hours for a time for a sales page. And but I know, and I mean, one of the things that there's an example of it's a website and it posts speaking opportunities. And so I go in there and it says opportunities. And so that starts scrolling through. So then I start applying to every one of them. And
Hmm.
sometimes I'm just not in the mood for it. I just would rather do something else. It needs to be done. But I'll tell you, I'm not sure there's a cliche in here somewhere, but when I am in the mood for it, boy, I just rock. I do the whole thing because I'm in the
Yeah.
mood and you just go through the whole thing and how long it takes. And you think, I don't know what happened. Why did you feel different an hour ago or the day before? But I don't know, but I want to take advantage of it. And I'm sure people are like that as well.
Mhm.
But one of the good things is with the many different things that you and I do is I look through my to-do list. And so my thing is a half a sheet of paper with everything on it. And there's Suzanne right at the top after the workout and stretch, blah, blah, blah. There's always something I'm going to want to do. And so
Mhm.
I can bounce around the things. But it's funny because it's when you're pushed up against a deadline, of course, that moves to the top of the list. But
Yeah, but don't you do like 3 tasks a day or 3 projects at a time?
yeah.
Like, don't you prioritize things like that?
Yes, I do. And then something that I do again, I just happen to use this, even though I've got my laptop and my phone and my at a glance planner and things, and I kind of use them all in concert. But I was telling somebody yesterday that this happens to be, I realized one day there's a lot of things that has to be touched every single day. You just have
Mhm.
to touch them. You got to go to the website, you got to look at the notes, you got to do whatever it might be. And so um I put together a thing that has to every day, this is how many things have to be done.
Whoa.
And
Wow.
it just goes down the list. And it's kind of like check daily email. I have an activity tracker I do. Check my bank cards. I sometimes look at that. Chat GPT, I'll do something on that. Constant contact. I post a lead magnet or a gratitude infusion mastermind. Facebook, do I need to respond to
Wow.
comments? And it just goes down the list. It's all alphabetized. And I don't do it every day, but like even Facebook or TikTok or YouTube, and respond to all the comments. If you want to get engagement, you want to boost up the algorithm, you got to be responding to comments. And I used to not do that because I would forget. And so developing and I got a lot of this for me came from being a pilot, because
Mm.
no matter how many years you're a pilot or whatever, you never don't double negative. You never don't use your checklist because it can save your life. And you go
Yeah.
through, you check everything and you just go right down the, no matter how many times you fly. And in fact, I read a book on checklists once. It was really interesting. And so, but the thing that I like is that having enough things to do, and that's why I think too, especially somebody my age, where a lot of my friends and acquaintances are retired or semi-retired or whatever, is having a lot of options and having things to do. And I had coffee with some fraternity brothers recently, and three of them are not working anymore. And so, no offense, but it's just not as interesting to talk to them. So they
Yeah.
don't have as many things to do. So that's never going to change for me. And I like having that. So you always have something that you're probably quote unquote in the mood to do. So it makes a
Yeah.
big difference.
Yeah. And what you're saying is that you're prepared. You're
Mhm.
prepared for your workday with a list of things to do.
Hmm.
I'm prepared based on my calendar and the way, and it's always up on my other monitor right here. It's always
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
Uh, and it just reminds me of what I need to do. And if I have a big project, something that needs to be done today, it's on there and
Right.
it's in the all day section.
Yeah.
And I I can't leave my desk until that's done. If it has that type of hot seat on it, and I think that priority list, correct me if I'm wrong, that priority list keeps you on track and focused on what's important.
Yeah, no question. And I think too, for me, it's again, I said that if you somebody's once said that if I don't care where your system is, get a system. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
You can write it on your hand. If that works for you, that's fine. But one
Hmm.
of the things that I do on a typical basis is I'll look at all the things and I'll just start knocking out content. Do this, post to TikTok, post to YouTube, check the
Hmm.
Facebook, check the email, respond to those emails, check my other Gmail account. I mean, just whatever it might be, you can fill in the blank. And I go through them and then I start scratching things off. And there's always this cathartic feeling about scratching things off,
Yeah.
and going through
Yeah.
it.
Didn't we say that the other day that there was some dopamine that
I
happens
think it is. I think it is a
make
dopamine hit.
progress?
I think it
Yeah.
is. And
Yeah.
then I'll look down and there'll be something that is 9, 10, and 11. And let me do those real quick and I knock all those
Hmm.
up. And so then it'll be maybe midday, noon, 1 o'clock or something. So I take out another piece of paper and rewrite the whole list because I've gotten a bunch of stuff done and I take stuff that needs to go back to number one. And it works for me. And that's why I said,
Yeah.
whatever your system is, get one that works for you. And it's something about that cathartic thing, the scratching out. And at the end of the day, but I always use the joke about, I've said the same thing for years. If one of the things to do was stop by Fred's house and pick up the $5,000 check he has for you, I
You
don't,
wouldn't forget.
I don't think he'd forget that.
Yeah.
I think that it'd be
Yeah.
okay. So, it's just funny how, and that's why I think that having a lot of choices makes it easier to handle because you're doing um, all sorts of things that maybe work for you in that day, and then really striking while the iron's hot and knowing the things that you're going to do. It's really cool because, again, that sense of accomplishment.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I want to circle back to um, being of unique value to other people
Hmm.
because I want to encourage the idea of having a statement or a sentence or two that you have memorized that you say all the time
Mm.
or that you cut and paste. I
Yeah.
have numerous cut and paste templates that I save in my little digital notepad. And it reminds me of who I am.
Yeah.
Not not so much to copy and paste and send to other people, but it's for me to remember who I am. So I show up like that out in the world because we all get stuck in our own heads of self-doubt or am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Who am I to show up like that? And it really helps
Yeah.
stay in that place of being of service.
Yeah. And I think hearing you say that too, I want to circle now back to this thing about how we plan our day and whatever is that, one of the best things you can do, I heard this years ago, is find somebody that's getting the results you want to do and then do what they do.
Yeah.
And so you can ask people, like you said, I can picture, you said on your monitor, here's your calendar on the screen off to the right and so forth.
Mhm.
But why wouldn't you do that? It always reminds me, like, consider the source. So if somebody's having success and you're managing
Mhm.
your time well as an example, or you're very successful in your coaching and speaking or whatever it might be. So I would want to ask you and listen to you. And yet what happens so many times in my life, I say, well, I'm gonna do so and so, and let me tell you how to do this. And you tell them, and they say, well, yeah, but my next door neighbor says that I should go.
Mhm.
Who's your next door neighbor? What the heck is that person know? Are you
Mhm.
kidding me? Listen, come to me. I have the results here. And so that's why I've learned I've gotten to crack myself up. But as I've just gotten older, I listen to less and less people because so many
Well,
people,
I
it's
I
just like,
I just had that happen last week where someone wanted my advice about something.
mhm.
She's not a client. She's a friend of a friend. And oh, I really value your opinion on this. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I gave her my opinion. She was offended and upset because it didn't match what someone else said.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, who is the someone else?" "Oh, it's my friend who is, a coach." "How long have they been a coach? Have they ever done that themselves?
Right.
Have they ever done that and had success? What they're telling you to do they do that and have success?" And she's like, "Oh, well, I don't know." I'm like, "Well, you need to ask." So I think there's a piece with all of this content and, stuff out there that you can be learning from someone who is just copying what someone else says.
Yeah.
They haven't really done it themselves.
Right.
So, and we could take, there's 100 different ways to come up with an elevator pitch.
Right.
There's another 100 different ways to come up with a value proposition. There's another 50 ways to come up with a POV, a point of view that makes you stand out in the marketplace, in that category of one style. So if there's all those different ways to fill in the blanks, and how do you figure out what's right, what's wrong, what works, what doesn't work?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah. And ultimately, what you're after is results. And if you get
Right.
results, obviously it's working. But I think also there's certain people, and some are coming to mind, that have a style that's not like your style or my style. That's going to be
Mhm.
different. And ultimately, if you're getting results, that's all that counts. But I've had some people coach me along the way that that's just not my style. And
Right.
I'm happy that it works for them and so forth. And I'm thinking of a couple of people that come to mind that maybe more abrasive or maybe more in your face or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And again, that's fine. But I think it's just like for some reason I think about the people that I've gotten a hold of recently that used to hire me, that hired me in the past, that I'm reconnecting with. And so I have a style of back going back and connecting with them and how's it going and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
And then, oh, by the way, so do you have anything coming up? And that style works for me, and it does
Mhm.
seem to get results. And but again, to your point, I'm always amazed at people. They ask for your opinion and then they get pissed off when you give them your opinion.
Yeah.
I don't. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So,
Well, I think that just goes to um people don't really want to figure it out on their own. They
mm,
just want to be told just tell me what to do.
yeah,
And I think so much of the entrepreneurial journey is figuring out what works for you and what feels right for you. And that can only be done through time and experimentation.
yeah,
Um, I remember the first coach I hired, a huge investment for me when I was a health coach, just starting out online, you
hmm,
know. And the first week of the program, I found out that I was never going to get to talk to her. And I
oh
was like,
wow,
wait a minute. I just spent $10,000 on a 4 or 6 month coaching program. And it was sold a coaching program.
hmm,
And I'm never going to get to talk to her.
wow,
All right. I don't understand what this is. And it was a group, and there was group phone calls, not even video calls, totally dating myself here. So it was a dial in, and you would listen to the coach talk, but you couldn't talk.
wow,
You couldn't talk with anybody else, and you couldn't ask questions. And
hmm,
I was like, what have I done?
yeah,
What have I done? And by week 3, I found out that it was her first coaching program that she had ever done. Wait a minute. I bought this expecting to learn how to be in this online space, but this is her first. Oh, Sue, what are you doing?
yeah,
And that's when it really, learn the hard way, right? Spend 10 grand,
hmm,
learn the hard way that in reality, everybody is selling something,
Right.
and you have to be discerning about what you're buying.
Yeah.
But I also had to do it my way.
Right.
So I learned her way. I learned numerous other people's way, and none of them felt like my way.
Yeah. But to give you credit, I like the old line about you can't just learn to ride a bike by talking about it. You got to get out there and
Yeah,
follow roads and
you
you
got to
see
do
it.
it.
You got to do it and things. And so you had to do it. And I think as
Mhm.
you're saying that, I'm thinking about some coaching programs I've gotten into, and boy, the old knowing what I know now, and what a waste of money that was. And it kind of makes me mad. But that's how you learn and you get
Mhm.
better. Same thing we were talking about: time management, networking meetings, all those kinds of things. Is we put our toe in the water, and at some point we try some and they work and others we don't, so we don't do it
Yeah.
anymore. So
Yeah.
so with that said, we should probably wrap up and kind
Yeah.
of.
Well, let's hear your value proposition. Let's hear your unique value proposition.
So my value proposition is I'm always helping people that are really disconnected in their life, and they're looking for a new sort of a pathway and a new mindset. And I talk about a gratitude mindset, which is so important. And I do this through coaching and a gratitude journal, and understanding that if you, in basic sense, if you see the glass half full versus half empty, you're going to have a better experience in life. And everybody wants to have a better experience in life. And so, like that gym coach or that trainer at the gym, I'm there every week for them to get back on track and stay on track, and give
Mm,
them exercises and activities to reinforce it every single week. And then, as I said earlier, it's all about choosing your attitude. And you and only you choose your attitude, and you can choose an attitude of gratitude if you so choose. But if you do, because we all have free will, it works so much better, and you're happier, healthier,
yeah.
lighter. And so the comments I get, my life is so much better. I feel more fulfilled. And maybe the biggest word that I get is I'm happier.
Mm,
So that always makes me happy. And then one final thing is that both in sometimes coaching, but a lot of times my speaking, is you changed my life. And anytime you get that, that validates it. And I know that I am making a difference. But it takes work, and it
mhm.
takes doing the work. But having that coach, having that teacher, having that person that holds you accountable is so important. The same way that gym trainer holds me accountable to go to the gym. So it's fun for me because I get that kind of reaction. And that's what drives me more than anything else with the work that I do.
Yeah.
So, and then how about you, STK, the entrepreneur secret weapon? Is what
Well,
you call?
I feel like it for me, I want to help my clients have the habits and the algorithms so that they know exactly what they're doing when they're supposed to be doing it in a way that feels good for them. And I really don't think what I do is business coaching or life coaching. I think it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
Um, because we all started a business to have a lifestyle, right? We
right,
didn't want to
correct.
work in corporate anymore. I didn't want to be a dental hygienist anymore. I wanted to work for myself.
Yeah,
For what? For freedom and autonomy. I wanted to be in charge of myself for myself. And with that comes a whole new set of responsibilities that most entrepreneurs aren't even aware of.
right.
And I want to help them be more aware of that so that they can work less and make more money.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Thanks.
Truly, truly the entrepreneur's secret
Mm,
weapon, which is good.
Well, I'm hoping,
I'm
I'm
hoping.
hoping, right, to be that little secret. One of my clients called me that when I
I like
asked
that.
him
I like,
after 2 years of working together. I asked him if he would introduce me to someone else in his office. And he was like, no. And I said, what do you, what do you mean, no? And he's like, I don't want him to hire you.
oh, that's funny. That's
And I
funny.
said, so you don't want to share me? with someone
Keep them
at
all to
your
yourself.
office. And he said, no,
Oh,
you're
that's
my
funny.
secret weapon.
There we go. There it was. There
There
it
it is.
was. And I
Yes.
would just conclude my aspect of something I say a lot. Gratitude turns what you have into enough. And it's all about your mindset and how it's seeing that glass half full. So, well, thank
Yeah.
you all for joining in this week. Thank you, STK. And thanks for paying attention to us. And hopefully you learned something. And we'll be back and we'll see you all again next week. Take care.